So in this tutorial, we will discuss some new features of Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2 and Windows Server 2008 R2 with Service Pack 1. Before I start discussing, you must know that all demonstrations in this video is done in Windows Server 2008 R2. If you look at Windows Server 2008, the interface is very similar, if not the same, so you should be able to follow it. The main and first major feature of Windows Server 2008 R2 over its predecessor is that Windows Server 2008 is very modular. This is done through the use of roles and features. Both are managed through Server Manager. Although sometimes there is an overlap between roles and features, think about role as a major feature or changes added to the operating system. A feature, on the other hand, is like an add-on package added to the OS. Some of these roles and features of Windows Server 2008 were available in Windows Server 2003 as downloads from Microsoft. In Server 2008, these have been integrated into Windows Server 2008 and you no longer need to download them from any Microsoft site. The modular nature of Windows Server 2008 makes it very easy to customize your server and change it when you need to change it. Here we can see that we have 16 roles of a server. On the other hand, we have some features like 34 or 36 number of features exactly in Windows Server 2008 R2 standard version. Now let's start by looking at some of the new features of Windows Server 2008 followed by R2 and finishing with the feature that are in Service Pack 1. First, I look at the Active Directory Server features added with Windows Server 2008. So the first feature here is Active Directory Certificate Services. Active Directory Certificate Services is formerly a certificate service in Windows Server 2003. Certificates give you excellent security. With Windows Server 2008, certificates are more tightly bound with Active Directory, making it a lot more easier to deploy certificates in your organization. Next, Active Directory Application Mode ADAM. This was previously an add-on in Windows Server 2003. With Windows Server 2008, it is included. ADAM is a non-operating system service unlike Active Directory. ADAM provides an application framework for application to access the data in Active Directory database. Next is Active Directory Federation Services. Active Directory Federation Services allow users in different organizations to easily share resources with each other. This is designed for the circumstances when the users are not part of your company and may be a partner or supplier. Federation services provide infrastructure for the two organizations to have access with each other's resources. All this is done without the need for the both of organizations to share their Active Directory infrastructure. When done, all the users in both organizations can share and access the resources of the two networks with a single sign-on. Next is Active Directory Rights Management. Active Directory Rights Management is designed to protect your intellectual property. For example, you could protect an Office document from being copied or even being printed. Next, Read-Only Domain Controller RODC. Read-Only Domain Controller is responsible for authenticating users and allowing them access to the network. RODC is used when physical security of the domain controller may be a concern. A RDC cannot make changes, and if stolen, can be easily removed from the network without any loss of security. Next is Active Directory is now restartable. What happened before is a problem with Active Directory that you cannot stop and restart it like any other services. Previously, we can only do this by rebooting the server. But now, Active Directory is now restartable like any other services. Next is granular password policies. Granular password policies, previously, if you wanted to have a different password policy, for example, if you want to enforce a longer password for certain users in your group, the only way you could have done it is having a different domain. But now, with Active Directory granular password, you can create completely different set of password policies for different users without the need of creating separate domains for separate password policies. The next is Active Directory Snapshot. This particular role, this particular feature is now allowed, or rather Active Directory now allow a snapshot for the database itself. A snapshot allow you to take a record of what the database is looked like at a particular point in time. Once the snapshot is taken, you can restore the database back to what it looked like when the snapshot was taken. Snapshot make recovery of an Active Directory database a lot easier. So that's it for Active Directory features in Windows Server 2008. Now, let's look at some of the Active Directory features that Windows Server 2008 R2 has. And in this section, I will basically look at some features which are actually non-Active Directory features. So in this section, first come, which is presenting Windows Server 2008 R2, is self-healing NTFS. If Windows detects a problem with a file on the hard disk, and NTFS work with a acute, an NTFS work with this to correct this problem. In old days, you sometimes had to reboot the server and run a low-level check disk. When the server started up, hopefully with the self-healing NTFS, rebooting a server to perform a check disk is not at all required. Next is this parallel sessions creation for terminal services. If you use terminal services, you may have separate delays for creating new sessions on busy servers, because terminal services can only create one session at a time. If a session was in the process that had been created, the next session had to wait to occur. Windows Server 2008 can now start 4 sessions at once in parallel, reducing the time users had to wait to access busy servers. Windows Server 2008 now supports clear server shutdown. Previously, what would happen is that all the process on a system would be given a signal that the server is shutting down. All processes on the system is then have 20 seconds to shut down. For an application that have a lot of data to write on a hard disk or a printer with a big job currently printing, 2 seconds, 20 seconds is not enough time. With Windows Server 2008, the processes on the server are now given as much time as they need to stop cleanly as long as they are still responsive. Next is server core. If Windows Server 2008, okay, before I go to server core, I would also definitely like to say that is, if Windows Server 2008 thinks that the processes are crashed or hung, it will reboot the server regardless. This ensures your services get time to shut down correctly, and thus those processes does not cause the system to reboot. So as I was saying, the next is server core. The next feature is server core because some of you may say that the server core was previously there, but it is a command line feature without any graphical interface. So I have included this one because not having a graphical interface means that the server has less software and drivers. This reduces the amount of memory to run the server and also reduces the attack surface. The attack surface is defined as the number of ports, services, and software that an attacker can use to compromise the system. More software running is more software that needs to be patched and has the security issues that a hacker may be able to explore it. Windows Server 2008 comes with a new role called Hyper-V. Originally, Hyper-V was not installed in Windows Server 2008 when it was first released, but now it is available in Windows Server 2008 as a download and maybe through Windows Update. Hyper-V provides a native virtualization solution to run your virtual machines. The next feature of Windows Server 2008 R2 is PowerShell. This was available as a download from Windows Server 2003, but it is included in Windows Server 2008. PowerShell is a command line interface designed to replace the old ms-dos command line. Now, this PowerShell is a lot more powerful than the command line and has better support for interface such as .NET. So now we will look at some new features of Windows Server 2008 R2. Here the new features are like branch cache. Branch cache is not exactly a new thing, but there are some these features that I want to look at how they work in Windows Server 2008 R2. And in that regard, branch cache is the first one that I like to discuss. Branch cache allows files to be cached on the local network rather than copying them over the WAN again. Branch cache only works with Windows 7 client. The next feature that comes is direct access. Direct access again is combined with Windows 7 clients. Only direct access allows users to connect with the corporate network without having a VPN connection. A direct access connection back to the office will be made automatically when the computer is connected to the internet connection. Next is Active Directory Recycle Bin, which allows you to recover an Active Directory object after it has been deleted. For example, if you deleted a user account, you can recover the user account and any security that is attached to that account using this Active Directory recycle bin. Previously, to do this, you would need to reboot the server from safe mode and restore the Active Directory object. The next is starter group policies. I'll this one in later videos. And Windows Server 2008 Service Pack 1 for R2 has also some new features. Those are dynamic memory for Hyper-V. In short, Hyper-V allocates some minimum range and maximum range of memory when it runs. In this regard, this dynamic memory for Hyper-V will allow some applications while it is running the exact memory that is required for. And the next is remote effects. It has something to do with this 3D rendering, and all the 3D rendering jobs or 3D jobs are done in server rather than the client. So now client has actually less pressure while accessing the server in order to access a high graphics. So now we will move to our VMware, where I can show you that how to install this Active Directory. Without taking so much time, I would like to inform that this Active Directory can be installed either from graphical interface or from PowerShell. So I will rather use the graphical interface. Here I have a server. In this server, I have only installed a fresh Windows Server 2008 R2 operating system. The name of this server is Server 1. Later, when I will describe the other features and other roles of Windows Server 2008 R2, I will show you that this Server 1 will be my first domain controller, and I can take Server 2 as either member server or child server. I will also include some professional client or Windows 7 clients to show how these clients actually interact with servers and what are the impacts or what are the effects of these roles and features when we install them in server and when a client accesses them. So now let's move to Active Directory installation. We will go to Start, and from Run we will put a command dcpromo.exe. This will check that if Active Directory domain services is actually installed in my operating system or not, and if not, then it will go for the Active Directory domain services installation. And this wizard will automatically open the Active Directory domain service installation role. But before doing this, I must show that we have to install the roles which are required for this Active Directory. So I will go to Add Roles, Next, and from here I would select Active Directory Domain Services. Then Next, Next, and Install. So it will take some time to install these Active Directory Domain Services roles in my server, and then only I can put dcpromo.exe to install Active Directory in my server. So here it has come. These, let me Okay, so now installation succeeded. I will cancel this. Let's try it next. So this is the window which comes after running DC promo. Here you can see that this Windows Server 2008 domain controller have a new, more secure default for the security setting named Allow Cryptography Algorithm compatible with Windows NT 4. Now this is where we will start Active Directory Domain Service installation, and it will ask that in what mode we want to create or how we want to deploy the configuration. So as I do not have any domain previously installed, so I will create a new domain in a new forest. Next, and I will give my domain name ittraining.local. This is a fully qualified domain name. For your information, I have already given this server a static IP. So here it will ask me for forest functional level. In later videos, I will discuss what is the functional level. But for now, as I won't go for any Windows Server 2003 or Windows Server 2000 servers, I will select my forest functional level and as Windows Server 2008. Next, it is a domain name server for me. So this is ticked, and as it is a first server, it will by default take global catalog option. That means global, this will be my domain name server and my global catalog server. And then next, and then it will ask a delegation for DNS server cannot be created because the authoritative parent zone cannot be found, because it is going to create a DNS server. It is looking for a parent domain. As I do not have any parent domain, I don't need to worry about this. So do you want to continue? I will say yes. Now these folders will come. Very soon I will describe these folders job and what are they actually. So this is a database folder which is NTDS.dit stored under Windows, and this is a sys folder where all the shading Active Directory will be stored. You ask for the password. I will give my password, and next, and next. So I will check the reboot on compilation, and you can see that this Active Directory Domain Service Installation Wizard has started. It is now writing the database, and it will create a domain name server. So I will now stop my video and will come back when it is complete. Okay, so now we have come back. My server is now restarted, and we will see that this Active Directory database is installed in this server. If I now go to my network adapter, I may have to change a simple thing. That is, I have given an IP address of 192.168.1.10 as my server IP address, which is my DNS server IP address, and here it has taken this machine as my DNS server. I can always go back, and if one, I can put the IP address, sorry, it should be 192.168.1.in. Okay. Okay. So now we are done, and here we can see that this server is now having the full FQDN name server1.ittraining.local. This ittraining.local domain which I have created, and this server1 is the child of this ittraining.local. Now, before I go further, I would like to tell that this Active Directory utilizes two main standards. These are X.500 standard and LDAP standard. That is lightweight directory access protocol. This X.500 standard is used to store the Active Directory objects in the database, and LDAP is used to access this data and the formatting that LDAP uses. Now, clearly, when we have created this Active Directory database, we will see that there is NTDS.dit file, that is the Active Directory database, by default is stored in C Windows NTDS folder. So here we can find this NTDS, and we will see that there are some files inside this folder. So what are these files actually? Let's have a look. Now this each domain in Active Directory will have a separate database. Domain controllers hold the copy of the database in the NTDS.dit file and replicate changes to each other. If you have more than one domain, then each separate domain will have its own copy of the NTDS.dit file. Here, I must mention another thing, that is organizational units. In order to organize objects, that is users or computers or other groups in Active Directory more easily, objects in Active Directory can be organized into organizational units, also known as OUs. These OUs are like folders on your hard disk. Now, what is this LDAP that I was talking about? This lightweight directory access protocol uses a syntax that refers to the most significant part first, followed by less significant or precise part afterwards. This is the opposite of other systems like file names or paths. The main syntax of any LDAP command is like cn equals to Joe or Oil or whatever the username is. If I write it down in a notepad, it will help you to understand how the syntax works. Say cn equals to this Joe, and then we will go to our OU, which could be users, and then we will go to our domain controller, which is IT training, and then again domain controller equals to local. So this is how LDAP follows the syntax, and this is how an object can be defined uniquely. Thus it is called distinguished name. There are other things also, that is canonical name. This is the name of the object in Active Directory that you want to access. For example, if you wanted to access a user called Joe, you would use cn equals to Joe, like this one. So the next part is then this organizational unit. This organizational unit in Active Directory are used to store objects into different areas or folders. If you have multiple OUs, then start with the lowest in the tree and expand downwards. For example, if a user was in users, accounts, and payable, you would use OU equals to users, OU equals to accounts, and OU equals to payable. So this is how we can retrieve any object using this distinguished naming format. Now let's come into our Active Directory database. This Active Directory database, where you can see all these NTDS, under this NTDS folder, all these files. As soon as people hear database, they think about software like Microsoft SQL, MySQL, Oracle, etc. Because we used to deploy a database server and then add the database to it. But here it's quite different. Active Directory databases uses the extensible storage engine ESE, which is an indexed and sequential access method database, which is called ISAM. IAM. It is used this record-oriented database architecture, which provides extremely fast access to records. This ESE indexes the data in the database file. This database file can grow up to 16 terabytes and hold over 2 billion records. Now, the default Active Directory database file location, as you can see, is C Windows NTDS. This file location can easily change during the Active Directory installation. As a best practice, it is always good if it can be saved in different hard disk partition rather than operating system partition. So you can save this Active Directory database anywhere you want, because when we were installing this Active Directory, you saw that it is asking for the path of this NTDS and sysvol. Now let's look into the files in the folder and use of these files. So first we have this NTDS.dit. This file is a physical Active Directory database file. This is where all the Active Directory data stored. It holds domain information, schema information, and configuration information. Mainly, it contains three tables. Those are link table, data table, and security deposit table. Now, you will see that there are other files like edb.log. Now, edb.log, we can see that a few log files starts with edb. Each of them may be about 10 MB or less in size. It is the transaction log maintained by system to store the directory transaction before write into the database files. Only before writing to the database files, the transactions that are initiated by the directory will be stored in these files. Now, what is edb.chk files? Here, it is the file to keep track of data transaction committed into database from log files. That means those transactions which are already committed from etb.log, we come to etb.chk, temp.etb. This is used during the Active Directory database maintenance to hold data and also to store info about large in progress AD data transactions. Easy, isn't it? Now, although it is not here, but I will show you later that there are two more files which are res1.log and res2.log. Even we can't see it in this example, this is a file type which will store log entries in etb.log file full. Now let's come to sysvol folder. So we can now go out, and this sysvol is a shared folder which contains files which is common for the domain. This share will be created automatically when set up the DC, like this domain controller. In my case, it is IT training. The default file location is C, Windows, and sysvol. But again, as I said, for this NTDS, likewise, sysvol, the path of this sysvol can be changed during the DC setup. And the same advice is for sysvol also, that we can always store it in a separate partition or separate drive rather than storing it inside this operating system folder. Now let's see what sort of data sysvol folder will have. The sysvol folder will have group policies. Group policies will use to manage users and computers based on company requirements. It can be to control computer application, security, network behavior, and others. Those will apply to computer accounts when those are restarted and connect to the domain. User policy will apply when they log into the domain computers. Next comes login scripts. This login scripts is also used to store login scripts for the domain users. Those are loaded when users log into a domain computer. It can be a batch file, PowerShell script, or VB script. Next is staging folder. This is used to sync data and files between domain controllers. So before any files, before updated or after just immediate transformation of any file from one domain controller to another domain controller, we may find this in staging folders. This file system junctions is another thing. That is an isolated location in hard disk which refers to the data located in different partition or different storage device. Now let's come to another issue which is called system state, and this will be the final point of this tutorial. Now what is this system state? Almost all backup solutions allows you to backup system states in Windows environment. When I ask some engineers how you backup DC, most of them say you need to backup system state. But how many of you know what exactly system state have? It includes quite a list of files and data. I will try to spell them out for you. That is Active Directory, DC database file, NTDS.dit. The system state will include this Active Directory DC database file NTDS.dit, sysvol folder and its files, certificate store, user profiles, IIS metabase, boot files, DLL cache folder, registry info, com plus and WMI info, cluster service info, Windows resource protection system files. So if you're looking to backup domain controller, you need to backup the system state. The size of the system state backup depends on the size of the above files which I just said and folders. So again, it is Active Directory DC database file, sysvol folders and its files, certificate store, user profiles, IIS metabase, boot files, DLL cache folder, registry info, com plus and WMI info, cluster service info, Windows resource protection system files. So in this article or in tutorial, I was just trying to explain what Active Directory database, sysvol and system state terms means. If you have any question, you can always mail me in ittraining@gmail.com. So for today, this is up to this, and see you in my next video.